Monday morning, Brian O'Neill filling in for Kevin Doran on the Newsmaker show with Dr. Spencer Annabel, who requested this time to talk about good things. Dr. Annabel, thanks for joining us.
Hey, you're welcome. My pleasure to be here. Right.
So, Dr. Annabel, I hear good things about St. James Hospital.
A lot has gone on. Our radio audience remembers on May 1st we separated from Trinity Health and became the independent St. James on our own, if you would. The hospital is renting the facility from Trinity Health, I think, for the amazing sum of $1 a year. And tremendous resurgence all along the line has occurred since that's happened. When U of R became convinced that we were going to have inpatient services here, they threw a lot of weight to bear on that subject. They sent their medical director to be our interim medical director. He's been the medical director of University of Rochester Strong Hospital and Highland Hospital for the past 20 years. Went down when F.F. Thompson in Canandaigua was in trouble, and within 2 years had them back in black. So he has been a godsend to Hornell and St. James in our community. Ray Majewski is his name. Good guy. We meet about once a week to go over what needs to be done until the next week. And he is a man that just gets a tremendous amount of stuff done. They also sent Patty Murray. She was the associate director of the Wlea Cancer Center, which is at the university's hospital, which is, in my opinion, rivaling the cancer center in Buffalo, Roswell. Excellent facility. She retired from there. And I said to Patty, well, what on earth made you go back to work? She said, this was a good opportunity to give some help, and she got a little bit bored with retirement. So she is our interim director of operations, along with our internal candidate for that job, Neva Bozzard, a local person, and Patty has been an incredible resource. The third person they sent down was a nurse specialist in Joint Commission of Accreditation. When we were launched on our own this spring, it was a big uphill task thinking about a JCHO accreditation. They come into your hospital every 2 or 3 years, and if you do not become reaccredited, you're in big trouble and not part of Medicare. They came in about a month ago and accredited the lab and gave us an excellent report. I think part of that had to do with our lab is now run by the University of Rochester. Dr. Tamara Paxos is our pathologist. She is employed by the U of R. We got excellent marks there. I've got the preliminary report. The hospital had its main accreditation last week, and I got a preliminary report on that we did very, very well. The only citations of any nature we received are on our 100-plus-year-old building. And even the engineering people and the accreditation team said, we've realized you can't fix your building, it's too old. And that brings me to another point.
Moving to North Cornell?
Yeah, thank you. And basically what's happened there, we sent our application in for the funds for a new hospital and thought that was going to be acted on this summer. Our application was one of the few that was not rejected. Many of the other applications for this funding were rejected, and the state has moved that decision back until this fall sometime. I don't have an exact date.
What's that decision again?
Whether or not St. James will be given the funding for a new hospital.
Okay.
And that's gotten bigger. Originally, when it looked like in the early spring and late winter, St. James was only going to be an outpatient facility, the new building was going to cost about $36 million. Now with inpatient, it's going to be up to about $53 million, and that extra funding will have to come to a second source. So we're going to have to stay tuned on that and see how we do with that. But I'm encouraged that our application was not one that was rejected.
When you say fall, Doc, I mean, as you know, I know you work 80 zillion hours a week. Today is September 21st. What's your definition of fall?
Somewhere between now and December. Why don't we make it pretty wide?
Gotcha. Not to embarrass you.
Not to embarrass me, nope. So anyway, I'm hard to embarrass anyway, as you probably already know. So we've got the accreditation under our belt. We did very, very well. And that's what's happening now. In terms of our relationship with the U of R, the ultimate thought with the University of Rochester, Noyes Hospital in Dansville, our hospital and Jones Hospital in Wellsville was eventually all to become affiliates of the University of Rochester. like Highland Hospital did a number of years ago, and F.F. Thompson did a number of years ago. Each of those hospitals retains their own board of directors and local control, but essentially is an outreach part of a larger group owned by the U of R. And I see that as the path to salvation for St. James, Noyes, and Jones. The other two hospitals are both in financial difficulty. It's very difficult today, unless you're part of a much bigger organization, to be able to survive. And U of R is committed to pursuing a full affiliate relationship with us. The other thing that's beginning to happen, since they've committed to an inpatient service, in August we restored full-time 24/7 anesthesia calls. So let's say you or I come in the emergency room at 2 o'clock in the morning, you can't breathe, the emergency room doctor can't get a tube down, they can call the anesthesiologist right in. The other thing that's very important, you couldn't establish 24/7 surgical on-call coverage until you had anesthesia coverage. Starting September 1st, we have found a third surgeon. We are now doing 24/7 emergency surgery. Now, what that might mean, for a while this summer, St. James was having to send out somebody with an acute surgical abdomen or appendage that was after hours because we didn't have the OR staff or the third surgeon to complete call of the anesthesia. All of those things can be done again at St. James. The emergency room's never wavered. It's done very well through all this, but the nice thing is this has had a dramatic impact on the inpatient census at St. James. Our average census last week was 15 patients.
And that's up.
That's way up, way up.
Great.
So that's had a good impact. And U of R realizes that St. James has no chance of becoming profitable unless you have a good inpatient surgical service. And what's happened there, the previous director of nursing and operations, Kathy Broadbeck, who left probably 6-8 weeks ago, was replaced with Dr. Majewski and all the folks in Strong, real boots on the ground out here. Those people have turned this place around, and they decided between the OR teams with nurses that had been laid off and how thin nursing coverage had gotten on the 2 West inpatient progressive care unit, they needed to refill a total of 15 nursing positions, and they have refilled 13 of them. The other thing they've done, we have some new graduates, as you probably know. Alfred State is our source of new RNs, and they come out as graduate. They haven't passed they're green, they need help. We have hired 2 mid-level providers to work the night shift to give these people the necessary supervision and competence they need. Now, mid-level providers are like physician assistants, right?
Okay.
And one of them is well known to this community, David Hanahan. He is awful glad to be back. We're glad to have him back. And one of the people he's worked with for a number of years is coming back with him. So they'll be doing the night shift. And that's going to make things much, much better for patient care and our nurses on the night shift.
You talk about nurses there. Wondering, Dr. Annabel, at the last town hall meeting, Jen Sullivan talked about how they were in the process of looking at a lot of nurses' resumes. I'm wondering, are these nurses that are coming back, or is this new blood?
Many are those who are coming back, who've regained confidence in the institution. The other thing that happened, and I think this has had a great improvement in morale, Dr. Majewski, our medical director, took a look at area nursing salaries as well as Patty Murray from Strong. And they decided we were sadly non-competitive in many areas, and they brought our salaries up to a par, and they're recognizing old veterans that have been there a long time.
That sounds good.
It is good, and that's had a very salutary effect on nursing morale. So on all that, I'm very encouraged. The other thing is, you can say, well, talk is cheap. What else is going on here through U of R? These are the following physicians that are U of R affiliated. Some have been here before, and some are new. In cardiology, we have Dr. Stuver and Dr. Hamer. They were here before as part of the Rochester Cardiopulmonary, and many of our patients will identify with this. I'm a patient of that group as well. We got this letter in the mail saying, Dr. Stuver's group was changing from Rochester General to Strong, and a competing group from Rochester University Cardiology Associates group, Dr. Wolford, was taking their place at General. The letter that was sent out kind of jointly by both groups, I think, fielded a little more confusion than clarity. And I just want our listeners to know that Dr. Stuver, Dr. Hamer, the other two doctors, Tim Strong, Dr. Otkus, and Dr. Burhall, pacemaker arrhythmia specialists, will all still be seeing their patients in Hornell just like they always have. So there's U of R cardiology at 4 people. Dr. Grisby, who we were concerned about losing to this community when the hospital was downsizing, is now an employee of Strong and is here 4 days a week.
Oh, that's great.
Yep. The third surgeon we've added, he's strictly on to finish the call. He's not going to have an office here in Hornell, but to furnish the call, a well-respected surgeon from F.F. Thompson, Joe Tellerico. He will be our third surgeon and basically be functioning in that call system we described before. The other thing to remember is Dr. Richard and Linda Wells. They're U of R employees now. They have an office in Big Flats. They're seeing patients 1 day a month here in Hornell. We're hoping perhaps that can be increased. Also, neurosurgery, Dr. Webb Pilcher, head of neurosurgery, University of Rochester, comes here on a monthly basis. Again, he's spread pretty thin between here, U of R, and Arnott and Elmira. We have a new head of pathology. U of R now runs our path lab. So let's say you have to have a biopsy or something. She's the one who will look at it, and you're getting an expert University of Rochester opinion, Dr. Tamara Paxos.
Can I cut in quickly, Dr.
Yeah.
Annabel? Listening to what you're saying here, would it be true to say that everything but maternity is back and what's back has some improvements? Would that be an accurate way to say it?
Everything but maternity is back.
And what's back
what's
is
back
better than it
is
was? Would you say it that way?
Not better than it was, hugely better than it was.
Okay.
Hugely better.
Continue with your list.
Okay. U of R has taken over the cancer center out back of the hospital, and now when you walk by the door, it says University of Rochester Radiation Oncology. They sent one of their young radiation oncologists, and unfortunately his name slips my mind, down to man that facility, and radiation treatments are resuming there. They're still going on with the locums, but now University of Rochester is taking a very real interest in that. Long-term, radiation oncology will eventually shift to a newer facility at Dansville, probably a year or two away. And the reason is, when you do a radiation treatment facility, you have to put the linear accelerator in a 3-foot thick cement ball. And the vault we have is on the small side, and it really cannot be updated for the future. It's very adequate now, so we're glad to see U of R's name already on the door out back at the hospital. Dr. Pradeep and Varsha Shatter still are running medical oncology from that building. When radiation does eventually change to Dansville for radiation treatments for malignancies, the medical oncology office will still be there, and the radiation oncologist will still see patients in Hornell for follow-up and consultations.
You talk about radiation. How about radiology?
Radiology is staying put. It's Dr. Ido Netanyahu's group from the University of Rochester, and they're staying put as they have been right along. We're trying to work on procuring grant funding. The mayor has been very helpful on this, probably Congressman Reed as well, for a new CAT scanner. Our CAT scanner is getting old. It needs a lot of maintenance, and that's being worked on. That's, I should say, a work in progress.
We're talking with Dr. Spencer Annabel here on the Newsmaker Show on a Monday. Brian O'Neill filling in for Kevin Dorn. We're talking about what's going on at St. James Hospital these days. Back in just a moment. Back on the Newsmaker Show, Brian O'Neill filling in for Kevin Dorn today on this Monday, September 21st, with Dr. Spencer Annabel. Dr. Annabel, one of the names that kept coming up through the hospital town halls was Jen Sullivan, and the press releases from St. James Hospital was Oak Orchard. Now, Oak Orchard is going to come in and, or are in the process now, of setting up a lot of doctors' offices, and they'll help you out with your Medicaid patients. Am I right there?
You're right. What's happening is Oak Orchard's been in the mix for quite a while, and they'll be moving Dr. Usman Mayer's pediatric practice that had been formerly run by the hospital to the basement of Elm Street. That's slated to happen in late September. The thing that's holding that up right now, they're a federally qualified health services center, so they have very strict building codes and have to comply with federal building codes for Article 28 compliant housing for their operations, which is basically hospital code quality buildings. So Elm Street had to have some significant reconstruction to be fully handicapped accessible in the basement. That's now been completed. We're waiting for the state of New York to sign off on that and give Oak Orchard a certificate of need approval. Once that's done, they can move Dr. Usma Mayer's practice in. They've already been working with her staff and will take over and run that practice. Oak Orchard is centered out of western New York by Brockport. They have 4 offices over in that end of the state, Brockport, Warsaw, and a couple of other places. This will be their first Tornell operation. And they are acquiring my medical practice. As many of the listeners have heard, I'm working towards semi-retirement. I'm still going to run the echo lab and do all the stress tests and run cardiac rehab at the hospital, but the private practice, it's time for me to slow down. And they will be acquiring my medical practice and moving that over to Elm Street as well. And that move, it's hard to say, might be October, might be November. A lot of it's dependent upon when the paperwork gets done and the certificate of need is approved. I'll stay on with the practice and shepherd it to the new owners for several months, so it's probably going to be well into December before that part of my professional activities comes to an end. But it's been a long process, and I'm glad there's someone to take over the practice as I leave. Almost all my staff, perhaps all my staff, will be staying. My nurse practitioner will be staying. They found a very good physician to take over my part of the practice as well.
Dr. Annabel, so that's I'm sure, as you said, a lot of the patients know, but that'll be news to a lot of people in the area. You're not retiring from your Civil War work, we hope.
Absolutely. Well, I'm 4 people in the American Civil War now. It's gotten quite busy. I've been a regimental surgeon in both armies for quite a few years, and this fall I started a brand new Civil War outfit, and we portray a Civil War artillery battery. We have a full-scale Civil War artillery piece, a 3-inch ordnance rifle. The gun weighs 2,000 pounds. It's called Maxwell's Battery. We portray alternatively the 1st Georgia Regular Artillery and Battery K 1st U.S. Artillery. And we chose Battery K 1st U.S. because one of the men in my unit is a 20-plus year military veteran of the descendant of that Civil War unit and served as an airborne artillerist as recently as Afghanistan. And to honor him, we've chosen that nom de guerre for our federal moniker, and we'll be running the gun in Angelica. We'll be 1st U.S. Battery K.
What's the date for Angelica?
The last weekend of September, which I check your calendars, but it's the Saturday, Sunday, which should be the 26th and 27th September. There'll be a noon battle each day and then one in the middle afternoon, and look for the guys with the biggest cannon in town in blue suits. That'll be us.
Okay, so reviewing what we talked about today on St. James, pretty much everything is back. Not pretty much. Everything is back except maternity, and everything that's back has improvements.
Huge improvements.
The hospital now is being run by, at the CEO level, Jen Sullivan,
yes.
But at the medical level, Dr. Raymond Mayuski, Dr. Raymond Mayuski. Apologies there, Doc. And, we've heard high words of praise from him. We heard it at the last St. James Town Hall from Mayor Hogan and others. Director of Operations, Patty Murray.
Patty Murray is helping our local person,
Nina Bozzard,
who is the interim. A few years ago, that position got, condensed, so Chief Nursing Officer also became the Director of Operations.
The lab is now being run by the University of Rochester's Dr. Paxos.
Paxos, yeah.
Okay. Funding for a North Hornell facility. They're still planning on that. The decision will come sometime between now and December. A plan for the hospital is underway for it to pretty much come under Strong's control while maintaining a local board of directors at what they call the Independent St. James.
That is correct.
All righty. And was there any other points you wanted to reiterate?
The other final point I'd like to make, and you remember this past winter when we had all these wonderful signs all over Hornell and Canisteo and the surrounding community, Save Our Hospital. If we are still on an uphill struggle, this is not a done deal that St. James will survive. And if you want to see St. James survive, you need to use it. And, I mean, the inpatient work has come back quite nicely. You need to use it for all of your outpatient needs, your imaging, your ultrasound, CT, MRI, your x-rays, all of your lab work. Now, I've got enough years on the old frame that I've got a lot of medical issues myself, and I do all my imaging and lab work at St. James. I'm very satisfied with it. University of Rochester is very satisfied with it as well. So if you want to see our hospital survive, our folks that haven't been using it need to come back and use it.
Hornell Mayor Sean Hogan made a point about that on a recent appearance here on WLEA. What he said was, it's going to save you money and a lot of drive time and wear on the car if you go to the Hornell Hospital, the Independent St. James.
And the study qualities is very satisfactory.
Okay, good to hear, good to hear. Was there anything else we wanted to cover, Dr. Annabel?
I think we're in good shape, and if other developments should occur, I'll be glad to come back and do an update.
Dr. Spencer Annabel, I want to thank you very much for stopping by today, and interesting to hear all the good news from St. James Hospital, and also your upcoming Civil War.
Absolutely. We'd like the citizens of Hornell and Steuben County to truck on over.
What's the date for Angelica?
September 26th and 7th, Saturday.
Well, that's coming up soon.
And
next weekend.
It'll be a great weekend, and we educate the Boy Scouts on Saturday morning. We have 2 battles each day, and lots of vendors in the park with all sorts of great things to eat. All the stores are open. It's a great weekend.
Dr. Spencer Annabel, I want to thank you very much for taking your time out of your busy schedule to come in.
Thank you. My pleasure.